Gentlemen, welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order. I'd like to ask for the city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence afterwards? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the February 14th, 2023 meeting and the agenda of the February 28th, 2023 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. Before we continue with the meeting, I'd like to invite members of the public to attend the 2023 State of the City event. Join us as we reflect on the accomplishments of the past year and share what is coming in the year ahead. This will be held on March 28th, 2023 at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Courtyard Marriott, located at 141 Magnolia Avenue, which is just across the parking lot from City Hall. And we're still waiting on all the kids from Granite Hills, right? Okay, so we're going to put that off a little bit. Let's go on to agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
No, sir.
Council? That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
No card, sir.
All right, I'll make a motion then to approve the consent items. Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
We do, sir. We have 3 speakers. The first one is Richard Agundes.
Hi, Richard. Welcome.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Hopefully next year, Grossmont will be here. I didn't know they're going to be here. I just wore my shirt today. I wear it all the time. I'm here this afternoon, to thank each and every one of you. It's been a tough 3 years for law enforcement, and I can't tell you, as a former member of the police department, as a former teacher of officers that are present, I can't tell you how much it's appreciated as a citizen of El Cajon that we have your support. The department has your support. I've been through times when the City Council was not so, how should I say it, supportive. But these last 3 years have been very, very difficult for law enforcement. And I just had to step up and thank you for taking care of the men and women of our department. I have a soft spot for this department because I've worked there. I know they take care of business. They're professional. And that's about all I have to say. I can't say it much better. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here and take the time to do this. But thank you very much from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the citizens of El Cajon that you keep safe because of the support for the department. I thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Let me see if there's any questions. Before you run off, Steve?
We should acknowledge that Mr. Agundes is El Cajon Citizen of the Year for 2022. Congratulations, and thank you for your contributions to our city.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's another reason I came, too, so you could say that.
We had this
in my Grossmont shirt. No, I'm not.
I'm glad I
playing.
remembered.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Stacia Wainsbach.
Hey, Stacia, welcome.
Hello. I just want to start out with thanking you two for your code compliance help. She did a really good job, your officer, with help with my HOA parking violations they were not enforcing. So I just want to thank you for that help.
You remember who that was?
Nicole. Yeah,
Great,
and
thank you.
I think her assistant too was really helpful. I'd also like the city to look into a newly appointed judge, Peter Lynch. He is an extremely corrupt and biased judge and making the city more unsafe every day. He's on the bench. I know he was just recently appointed, and I actually had experience dealing with the judge before him and could prove between the two cases what the bias and corruption is. You could go to any local gun shop in El Cajon, and they know his name already. He is on the side of the criminals, and he needs to be looked into by the city.
Just, I understand what you're saying. I just want to let you know that the city has no jurisdiction over judges at all.
Okay, so what would people be able to do that have issues? There's nothing, I mean, he's in the position of power, and the only thing you could do is file a complaint.
You know, I'm going to ask our city attorney, how do complaints against judges, how are they handled?
Well, if somebody, excuse me, somebody has a complaint against a judge and feels that they've violated certain laws, they should report it to the Judicial Council up in San Francisco and file a complaint with them, and then they will investigate judge's behavior.
I just think it's important that the office he's in is for restraining orders for women, and if I was a woman that needed a restraining order, I would tell them to move to a different city. That's how terrible of a judge he is, not protecting women in the city of El Cajon.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Last speaker is Joe Alegria.
Hi, School Board Member Alegria, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Mayor Wells. I'm actually coming today before you with my pregnancy care clinic hat as a director of development.
Okay.
So what I have for you today, and first of all, I want to thank all of the council members who have richly supported us in so many efforts of what we do at the Pregnancy Care Clinic. The clinic provides assistance for unintended pregnancies, offering them options of placing for adoption, helping them to understand parenting. We offer parenting classes and support classes. And we also do talk about abortion, how we don't refer to abortion, and we give them solutions of healing from abortions if they have had one. So today I wanted to present to you that we are having our actual 30th anniversary Walk for Life. So we have actually been operating in the city of El Cajon for 30 years. So our Walk for Life is going to be an actual spectacular celebration hosted at the Promenade Park, and there will be face painting and music and free hot dogs. Councilman Ortiz has agreed to present for our recognition for our volunteer of the season, so thank you. And also, I know Councilwoman Metzels also have provided recognition awards from the city, and also Councilman Goebel has emceed one of our events as well. So I want to thank all of you for your support for our clinic. I brought some information for the walk, and we hope to see you out there. And I also want to thank the city of El Cajon for their amazing service in providing us this space and working with us as well.
Well, thanks very much. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. Thanks for the good work you're doing.
No more comments, sir.
All right. Colin, are we ready yet? On their way, so we're going to keep going, though.
Mr. Mayor, the next two agenda items, 8 and 9, can be a little bit lengthy. What I'd probably recommend is we skip in the agenda to agenda number 10 and just start going through 10, 11, and 12 until everyone's here.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. The Administrative Report 10?
Correct.
All right. Item 10 is an extension of the management agreement with Live Nation, and I'll ask staff to tell us about that, please.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Give me 1 sec while I set up.
Hi, Paris.
All right. So I'm here today to present a proposed contract amendment to the management agreement with Live Nation, which would extend the agreement by 2 years. All the other conditions would remain the same. So kind of as some background, as it sits right now, the contract with Live Nation would expire in August of 2024. The agreement was initially signed in 2018 and took effect in September 2019 when we opened, so the 5-year clock started then. 6 months after that, in March of 2020, state and county regulations related to COVID effectively shut down the theater. And Live Nation had to close or cancel all the shows and reschedule and postpone stuff. It wasn't until after September of 2021 that the state safe reopening guidelines allowed us to reopen the theater. And at that point, we had been closed for 19 months consecutively. Even after we reopened, the reopening was pretty slow. And so we really didn't get traction and back to the capacity that the theater was intended to operate at until several months after that. So this past September of 2022, I provided the council with a financial performance report. I wanted to include some of those slides now, and I've had the chance to update some of these slides so that you kind of get a picture as to where we're at financially with the theater. This first slide shows the number of target events as identified in the contract. So the contract with Live Nation has an exhibit in it which indicates how many events they're going to perform each year, and it kind of progressively steps up. You can see in the first year, in March, we closed down, and then the second year is almost completely closed or partially reopened, I guess you could say. It's not really until our third year and fourth year that we get kind of more of an operating picture for the facility. And this year, we're estimated in 2022 and 2023 to have 72 events, or I should say we're on track to reach 72 events. This slide is the Magnolia adjusted operating income through December of 2022. That's the most recent data that I have. It shows you the revenue from the shows minus the show expenses and fixed expenses. And as you can see, since 2021, we've been kind of trending in the right track. In fact, for 22-23, that's for the 6 full months that I have, and we're currently sitting in the positive by about $250,000. So this is before city expenses. This is just the Magnolia's operating picture, if you will. This slide is kind of a more static slide. At the moment, it represents our utility expenses, other expenses that the city has in regards to maintaining the facility, such as repairing the facility and insurance for the facility. And so when you add the Magnolia's operating picture, or AOI, and the city's expenses, this is where we're currently sitting. So through December, we're sitting at about $38,000 subsidy for the facility. And for the next 6 months, we don't anticipate we're going to be doing as strong. The fourth quarter is really the strongest year at the facility, but we still do anticipate it's going to be pretty close to where we're at. I think we project the AOI right now is about 250, and we project by year's end it's going to be about 150, but still in a good position. This is kind of our attendance by quarter, or summarizes our attendance by quarter. You can see the fourth quarter of 2022, we had our strongest quarter as far as attendance goes at the facility. I think we had Eddie Vedder and maybe Morrissey. Was that part of Q4? Okay, just Eddie Vedder alone. He's a big enough draw. Anyways, so this kind of captures our attendance trends for the facility. And I would just kind of note that, we talked about how much money we're subsidizing right now, and right now we're in a good spot. Prior to closing in 2009, we were subsidizing the facility with about $600,000 annually. So we're getting a pretty good return on our investment right now. And if we secure the agreement now, we're doing so at a good time as the cost of everything, as you know, is going up. This gives us the ability to lock in our rates beyond 2024 to 2026. So with that, I would like to turn it over for questions. I have Paris Landon with Live Nation here to help me answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Questions? Steve?
The 72 events, do those include civic events like school district rentals and other kind of community events as well, or are those purely Live Nation artists?
No, that includes all our events if it's activated with show day. So like the school rents us for multiple rehearsal days, but the dates counted as the event are just the ones where we're doing performances.
Okay, that's good news. I think the financial information is great. Thank you for including that. That makes us a very informed decision. Thank you.
I'm to understand that we're just extending the existing contract. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially what it does is it takes that 19 months plus a couple months and takes that time we're closed and puts it at the end of the agreement. So we're going to see a fully functioning 5-year management of the facility.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Are there any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay, well, council, we got a decision to make. Personally, I could not be happier than what I've seen with Live Nation. Some of us have been around to see how it's been different in the past, and I think this has been a real positive thing for us. Does anybody have any suggestions on how they'd like to change the contract, or somebody like to make a motion?
Well, I think this Live Nation has been a spectacular success in that building, so let's do more of the same.
Motion? Steve wants to say something.
No, go ahead. 94,000 people into the city, and those are not a lot of duplicates because the shows were different and the audience is different. The fact that we get 94,000, I'll call it unique individuals into the city, is a great opportunity. I think that's still an untapped opportunity with some of our downtown businesses. But I think certainly the partnership and the operations just really are first class for our city. We're so glad to have Live Nation. I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
Second. All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 11 is to reject bids for the design.
Mr. Mayor, I think, is everybody here?
We're ready to go now.
Oh, you're ready to go?
I'd recommend we move back to presentation.
I misunderstood the hand signals.
I think you misunderstood.
I'm used to the Grossmont signs. All right. All right, now I got to find you. Way back here. All right, we have a proclamation for the Granite Hills High School Championship. We're all very excited. If the principal, Christina Wild, will come up to the podium, and our city manager will tell us about this. And council, why don't we go down, because we got to meet the young men who did this, and we have some things for them.
Go ahead. You want to come on it? Thank you. Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm Dr. Christina Wild, principal at Granite Hills High School. The Granite Hills High School football team are outstanding student athletes. And we know this because the players that are supposed to be here today are all just started texting us at their other sports obligations and could not make it. So very sorry about that. That's why we were hurry up and texting there. And so but I do have some words I would like to say, if that's okay. In public education, the goal of athletics is to win the competition. The purpose of athletics is to develop sportsmanship and character. Granite Hills High School has a rich 60-year tradition of athletic excellence, and this year's football team added another chapter to that storied legacy by winning our first football state championship. But one of the reasons the Granite Hills community is so proud of this team is the character they showed along the way. Captained by Easton Peterson, the CIS San Diego Section Male Student Athlete of the Year for the Grossmont Conference, this team showed the resilience of a champion and one with character, including a thrilling overtime victory for the state title. Today I'm joined by Grossmont Union High School District Governing Board member Dr. Gary Woods, Superintendent Mary Beth Caston, and Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services Mike Fowler. And on behalf of Grossmont Union High School District, I want to thank our council members for joining us at the December parade that was held in this team's honor. It was an amazing event. And for giving us this opportunity today to showcase both this team's accomplishment and their character. Their historic achievement is a result of the leadership of head coach Kellen Cobbs, who's here today, and his outstanding assistant coaches. With that, council members, it's my honor to be here with you today to recognize the 2022 California State Champions, the Granite Hills Eagles. Thank you. You want to say something?
I just wanted to say real quick, you know, that the parade, I know a couple of you guys made it out to that. That event was absolutely amazing. I want to say, you know, for those of you guys that were there, I truly, truly appreciate it. I know the kids were ecstatic to have you guys out there. They felt on top of the world that day. So I truly appreciate you guys all being out there and supporting us.
All right. Coach, why don't you come over? All the staff come up here. The school board member, Gary Woods, is here. I don't know who these folks are.
That's Mr. Mike Fowler, Assistant Superintendent of Education Services.
Oh, Mr. Fowler.
And Mary Beth Caston, the Superintendent.
Oh, great. Hi. Hi. Thanks for coming. Well, we have a proclamation for you, and I'm going to skip all the whereases, but go down to the end. It says, now, therefore, Bill Wells, Mayor of the City of El Cajon, together with the City Council, hereby proclaim the 16th of December, 2022, to be Granite Hills High School Football Eagles Day in the City of El Cajon, and congratulate the Eagles on an outstanding year. We further encourage the community to join in applauding the team, the coach, and the school on this monumental accomplishment. Coach? Can you give that to you? Yeah, Coach, you got to get used to standing for the cameras, though, Coach.
Want me to move out of the way?
Coach, I'm just curious. Could you tell us real quickly how did you make this happen? I mean, this is a massive thing.
I mean, it was just a lot of work from the kids. They did a great job. You know, I joke that, you know, we went and won a state championship, but honestly, one of our toughest games was with, you know, Helix right down the road. So, you know, great football out here in East County. I'm proud to be a part of it. You know, a lot of people put in a lot of work, you know, administrative wise to be supportive of us. You know, our district allows us to build great champions and just great young men. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, we're all super proud of you. We've got certificates for the young men, and if you could pass them to us to them, that we'd appreciate that. And we'll see you back here a year from now for to do this again.
Hopefully, we'll see.
Well, I saw Friday Night Lights. I know what I know.
You've been out to see it, so I appreciate you guys coming out and supporting us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Gary, good to see you. Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know you guys. That was awesome.
Give this to the coach.
Man, is that something? I mean, any state championship's a big deal, but California, we're so big. I remember when I first moved to Dallas, I lived in this little town called Allen, Texas, and I went to go get some food on a Friday night, and everything was closed. Every restaurant in town was closed. Where are they all? They're all at the high school football game. It's the biggest thing that happens in Texas, but that's really exciting. All right. Now we're going to move on to 11, right?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend we go back to 8.
Oh, I thought we got to skip that now. Okay, hold on a second. Find it. Okay, that brings us to public hearings. We have 2 items to consider. Item 8 is the fiscal year 23-24 CDBG and home allocations. And staff, will you tell us about that, please?
Okay. Just going to set up here for a second. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. I'm Jose Dorado, Housing Manager in the Community Development Department. This afternoon, we're presenting 2 items for City Council's consideration. I will introduce Yanni Pelayo Brito, Housing Specialist, who will be providing the first of 2 presentations for item number 8 and item number 9.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Okay. The purpose of today's hearing is to seek public input and the City Council's decision on the projects and programs the City will undertake during fiscal year 23-24. As you're aware, the 5-year consolidated plan is the City's plan for addressing the needs of El Cajon low-income community residents over a 5-year period, and this is using CDBG and home funds. The annual action plan is required for each year of the 5-year consolidated plan. The action plan identifies projects and activities to meet the goals and priorities in the consolidated plan. Fiscal year 23-24, which is being presented today, is the 5th and last year of our current consolidated plan. For this process, a notice of funding availability and application for CDBG and home projects was published for a 30-day period. That was between November 21st and December 21st of 2022. Through that process, we received 12 eligible applications, 11 for CDBG and 1 for home. Here's historical funding for both CDBG and home projects. And these are allocations received yearly through HUD. The estimated fiscal year 23-24 allocation was expected to be $1,219,861, and for home it was expected to be $665,010. However, HUD did announce the actual allocations for both CDBG and home late yesterday afternoon. So we did not have a chance to actually update this, so we will be basing it off this estimated allocation for 23-24 shown on this slide. However, there is a slight increase from last year which is about a 0.75% for CDBG and 3.61% for home. So the actual allocations will be reflected in our second public hearing in April. So for CDBG, in addition to the estimated allocation of the 1.2, staff has identified $170,106 in prior year CDBG funds that will also be recommended for allocation today. Staff's recommendations for CDBG funding are listed here and in attachment 1 and, no, just 1 for CDBG summary allocations. So for planning and administration, staff recommends administration of the CDBG and home programs in the amount of $203,972. Staff recommends for housing services in the amount of $40,000 and CDBG funds, and that is for CSA San Diego County. Under public services, under public facilities, capital, and other category, staff recommends funding a pilot program, the emergency repair program, and the amount of $60,000. This is a new program, so I do have a slide with additional details after this. Staff is also recommending funding the continuation of ADA concrete improvements for 23-24 in the amount of $864,866, and that includes the prior year CDBG funds mentioned. Staff also recommends funding the Home of Guiding Hands project in the amount of $38,150. The staff report did mention this was contingent to HUD determination of eligibility. We did receive HUD confirmation that the ADA accessibility improvements for this project are eligible under HUD. For public service category, as you know, there is a 15% maximum. So the funding allocations that staff is recommending is $37,086 for crime-free multi-housing, $100,000 for emergency shelter program, ECTLC, $10,000 for senior care coordination program, Elder Help, $10,893 for vocational shelter program, Interfaith, and $25,000 for Meals on Wheels, El Cajon, Meals on Wheels. This makes the total CDBG allocation for 23-24, including prior year funds, $1,389,967. So just to provide a few details on the pilot program, emergency repair program, this will be a forgivable loan up to $10,000 for single family and eligible mobile homes. It is a 5-year term. It is converted into a grant because it is forgiven at a 1/5 ratio every year. Eligible homeowners can earn or will have to earn less than 50% AMI. For a household of 4, that would be the maximum $65,050 annually. Priority will be provided for seniors and persons with disability. Some eligible repairs, not limited to, would include electrical, water heaters, roof, health, and safety, and items affecting habitability. Moving on to the recommended home allocations. Again, the estimated home allocation for 23-24 is $665,010. Staff has also identified prior year home funds in the amount of $2,365,757 that will also be recommended for funding. For home administration, there is a 10% maximum, so staff is recommending $66,501. For the Chota Reserve allocation, which is a required minimum of 15% of the annual allocation, that will be $99,752 for the recommendation. The leftover would be housing program pool of funds, and that would be in the amount of $498,757. Staff is also recommending the prior year funding of $2,365,757 for the for sale affordable development and home ownership project. That project was submitted through San Diego Habitat for Humanity. So with everything, the total home allocation will be $3,030,767. The San Diego Habitat for Humanity, they did provide the proposal for the for sale of affordable development / home ownership. So a little bit about that project, that would be a development of 20 for sale affordable units. This would be for home buyers earning less than 80% AMI. For a household of 4, that would be maximum $104,100 annually. Once this funding is approved, the first step would be for San Diego Habitat for Humanity to identify potential sites. They have done past projects here in the city of El Cajon that would include Ballantyne, Foundation Lane, and Birchwood projects. The next steps after this public hearing would be to prepare the fiscal year 23-24 one-year action plan. We do have a second public hearing for approval of final allocations and adoption of annual action plan. This is tentatively scheduled for April 25th at 7 p.m. The next step after that would be to submit for HUD approval by May 17, 2023, and funds will become available beginning July 1st. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. Any questions? Looks like we're done. Oh, well, yes. Steve has a question.
The ADA improvements of $865,000, it's in its third year. Do we have an idea, is there an ending point on that, or is it, how close, are we halfway done, are we almost done?
We do have a current project that if I am thinking of the latest report that they submitted to us for last month, I believe the end of completion for that one would be around May of 2023. So all of those funds would be expended, and this funding would be available to them July 1st.
And I think that does another 70 sites or something.
Yes.
How many more sites are there beyond the 70 included in this proposal?
In this proposal, they did include about 70-something sites as well, but we can confirm that number, and I can provide that for City Council.
Do you think there's another 200 beyond this? I'm trying to get a sense of, we're in year 3 of X. What's X?
I'm sorry, one more time?
I'll look to the city manager.
I don't. We'll have to find that out. I don't know what their long-term plan is or what the overall needs are, but we can get back to you on that information.
I'm guessing, I'm thinking the public would say we spend $900,000 a year. How many more years will we be spending $900,000 a year? And I think that's kind of where I'm going with this.
For the overall?
No, I'm sorry. Let me try a different approach. $900,000 is set aside for concrete cutouts for ADA improvements. Are we almost done with the concrete cutouts in the city, or are we just starting?
No, we're just starting.
Okay.
This is the beginning. And if those were all done, then there would be other types of public improvements that could be utilized, like street lights, things like that. Right now we have some funding for those, but this is a good funding source for that specific need.
And that's where I'm going, is at what point can we call the concrete cutouts for the curbs done and we move on to street lights?
Correct.
Sounds like we still have a ways to go on concrete curb cutouts.
That's correct.
I could also answer that. So we have a 5-year consolidated plan, and within that 5-year plan, ADA curb ramps was a priority. So this is the last year of the 5-year plan. So in a few months, we're starting the process for the next 5-year plan. We're going out to the community and finding out what needs they need to fund with our low-income dollars.
Sounds good. Okay.
So even though there's the need, the council will have periodic opportunities to say, okay, maybe there's a different need, or there's still a need, but maybe the priority should be this based on input from the public.
Try to balance out, okay, we've done 5 years of improvements for this audience, and now maybe we want to switch for a different audience to kind of balance things out. Okay, thank you.
More questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions with regard to the increase, you had an estimate picture, I think 1.2 for CDBG and home. How will those funds be applied? Are they going to go, when we get the right number, are they going to be applied based off of a percentage of awards, or how would the staff tackle that?
So for planning and administration, there's a 20% maximum for the annual allocation. So with that increase, some of it would go to planning and admin, and then the remainder would be going to the other portion, which would then be under public facilities / capital / other, because there is no maximum for that.
So it's my understanding staff's recommendation would be whatever increase that we have, well, it's going to go to administration, but then the remainder, you're saying it should go to the ADA concrete improvements, whatever surplus we get, an increase?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I believe the difference would be about like $1,000 and something. So it's not that much.
That was a very important question. You should have just led with that. And then a question, I don't know if we've worked out the details of the emergency repair program. I like the idea to help out lower income, maybe seniors. Is with regard to what's eligible, is it act of God, weather, or I'm kind of thinking, what are the terms that we'd be approving these repairs for? I mean, if someone just takes a chainsaw to their roof because their roof is 30 years old, can you talk a little bit about the process, and if it's been worked out? If it hasn't, then it could just be postponed to explanation.
The policies and procedures are still in the works. However, some of the eligible repairs are those listed here. So where it says affecting habitability, that would be to the determination of the building official in terms of going out there and making sure that the property is good to live in. Health and safety, it would have to be an example, a person with disability, they need a ramp or something like that. Okay. Again, the details are still being worked out. The program won't be open until funding becomes available in June, so I would say around August. But things like that would be eligible. It is up to $10,000, so it's only for repairs. If it were to be further than that, we do have our housing rehabilitation loan program that these homeowners can use as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess sabotage would be my concern, or fraud, and I'm sure Tony's nodding his head. He's on it. Okay, thank you. And then, do we have a site identified for the Habitat for Humanity projects?
No, not yet.
Okay.
That would be the first step if funding is approved.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Steve. And we don't want somebody taking a chainsaw to a site to make it eligible for
yes,
Habitat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Hey, on the $500,000 for the home housing program pool of funds, that can be used for American Dream first-time home buyers, single-family rehab, mobile home rehab. That's kind of your pool to get any of these programs, right? You're not excluding those.
Correct.
Okay. It's just a pool to use for any of those. Okay, great. Thank you. Michelle?
Okay, I have a couple of questions and then comment. So going back to the first-time homebuyer program, how many people typically take advantage of our first-time homebuyer program every year?
Let's see. I know there was a slowdown due to COVID and all the market. However, I believe it's 2019, we provided assistance to 13 first-time homebuyers. The program has now been revamped, and currently we do have a few applications in place. And administration now is through the San Diego Housing Commission, so they are doing a lot of marketing for this program as of now.
Okay. And my comment is on that. For the public, this is definitely something that, if you're struggling and you need to buy a house and you can get a house, your house payments are less than what we're maybe paying for rent. This is the best way to do it. We did it. I bought my house with the first-time homebuyer program here in El Cajon. And it's confusing at first, but we've been in our house now going on 23 years, and all because the city was able to help us out with that first-time homebuyer program. So I encourage any of the public that is listening now, if you are paying rent and you know you've worked it out and you get pre-approved and you know that you can afford $2,000 a month, look into buying a home or a condo, something like that, because it does, it certainly does help out, and you get, there are pros and cons to being a homeowner, but definitely home ownership is really a good thing to your family and not making a landlord richer. But thank you. I was curious about that, and I know that the Habitat for Humanity program, that's really good, and I have worked on a project for that before, helped build houses, and it's definitely a worthwhile program, and I'm glad that we're still working with that. So thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Thanks for coming. Nice presentation. All right, the public hearing is now open. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
No comment, sir.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to close public hearing. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, cancel.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendations for community CDBG and home grant programs.
Second. It's moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 11 is to reject bids for the design build of the digital message board. And I'll ask our assistant city manager.
Sorry, we still have item 9 that we had moved over, or moved past previously.
Back to that. I think I have had a problem with my script here. Thanks, Counselor. All right, we figured that out. The last public hearing, item 9, is the home ARP allocation plan and amendment, and I'll ask staff to introduce this item. Hi.
Thank you. So tonight we're presenting an action plan amendment as well as a separate amendment to receive one-time home ARP funds. So first I'm going to go into the 2019 and 2020 amendment. We're providing $185,000 to Home Start to do additional outreach and homeless services. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, next slide, please. The second part of this item is an amendment to the 21-22 action plan to incorporate the use of home ARP funds. These are one-time funds we're receiving from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the goal of tonight's meeting is to identify programs and activities to be funded with these dollars, as well as accept public testimony. A little bit of background on this funding. We received, the Congress allocated $5 billion to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability across the country. The city of El Cajon is fortunate to receive approximately $2.1 million. Using the HUD prescribed notices and planning requirements, we started a consultation process with stakeholders and with the public. And today we're going to go over the substantial amendment to the annual action plan. So who can we serve with these dollars? So HUD has identified that qualifying populations identified on the slide are the folks that we're supposed to be helping with these funds. It goes from unsheltered to shelter, people that are currently at risk of losing their homes, fleeing domestic violence, or family needing services to prevent homelessness, as well as veterans. So eligible activities, as shown in this slide, is production and preservation of affordable housing, tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, housing counseling, and non-congregate shelters. Next slide, please. So through the home ARP process, we started consultations with various groups, received public input, and we also consulted with the local continuum of care. We performed data analysis to identify needs and gap priorities. And then part of that process is today's public hearing. And as part of the data collection, we reached out to stakeholders that serve one or more of the qualifying populations. And we asked for feedback on what they felt the priority should be for these funds. We also did a community needs survey that was sent out to various groups, posted on our website, and we used Twitter and Facebook to post those surveys. Today we're at the step of the public hearing. That's one part of this public input. We'll have a second public hearing in March for final adoption. And our current draft action plan is on the website, and that comment period is from February 16th through March the 3rd. And we also use data from the most recent point-in-time count for 2022. And then on the needs assessment and gap analysis, we use the point-in-time count numbers to produce these figures. So emergency shelter, at the point-in-time count, there were 683 folks housed in emergency shelter, 440 in transitional housing, and 185 were unsheltered. We also looked at a current housing portfolio of affordable housing units throughout the city. We currently have 1,153 existing affordable housing units that are deed restricted. There's also 8,360 applicants on the Section 8 waiting list waiting for a voucher. Also in population groups, we use census data, and we found out that 5,980 residents are at greater risk of becoming homeless. That's due to the low income that they have. They earn between 0 and 30% of the area median income. And the second group is 3,725 households that are also at risk that make between 30 and 50% of the area median income. So the survey results to date indicate that there is a greater need for development of affordable housing, including permanent supportive housing. So permanent supportive housing is where you have on-site services. So there'll be like a dedicated office, and they're providing different types of services, particularly for the residents. So they wouldn't need to go somewhere else to get some type of services that will be on-site. So if we, based on survey results to date, and using the priorities been identified on the surveys, we'll be allocating approximately $1.8 million for the development of an affordable housing project serving qualifying populations, use some funding for administration and planning, and the total home ARP allocation is about $2.1 million. So staff is available to answer any questions that were presented today. We ask council to adopt the resolution approving $185,000 to Home Start as part of the annual action plan amendment, and also accept any public testimony, provide feedback on the draft home ARP plan. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions? Michelle?
Okay. So we're looking to give Home Start $185,000. Do we have any say as to how that money is spent at Home Start?
Yes. So they work directly with our police department and with other nonprofits. So they're going to be using those funds to do additional outreach in the community and maybe connect some of those folks to East County TLC. So they're going to be working together on this first pot of money. We'll be coming with the second pot of money in a few months. So with those two pots of money together, we're hoping there'll be a sufficient amount of money to help people from living on the streets and either getting into emergency shelter, transitional housing, or getting their own unit in the city.
So that $185 that goes to Home Start, is that paying for the salaries of the outreach workers, or is that actually paying for the housing itself?
It's a combination of both. So it's kind of the workers and then some flex funds to help people get housed. So if they need like security deposit assistance, first and last month's rent, there's flexibility within that pot of money to help folks.
Okay. On the Section 8 waiting list, has anyone got received an update as to the waiting time? Because right now, I believe it was like 2 years ago, I spoke to someone at HUD. That's a 20-year waiting list for some people. 20 years is a long time to wait for housing. I mean, you could become homeless several times in that 20 years. What are we doing to help mitigate, or are we working with HUD to try and get that? The money's there. From what I understand, the money is there, but the administration of those funds to the people that need it, what is the holdup? Do you know?
Well, HUD, through the American Rescue Plan, also allocated additional vouchers. So like 300 more vouchers went to the county to administer for all other areas, including El Cajon. I understand the waiting list is very long for Section 8, but the county is really trying to work, I guess, in changing their priority groups, because right now they have certain groups they target, and a lot of folks have been trying to make sure those vouchers are allocated to the highest need, which would be, in this case, homeless, or those that are at risk of homeless and need a voucher.
Okay. I know that our school district, I was at a homeless housing meeting some time ago with the East County Homeless Task Force. They had, I believe it was 340 students in the Cajon Valley School District who were couch surfing, living in their cars. I doubt that they were actually on the street, because if you're a kid going to school and living on the street, it's extremely difficult. How is that being addressed? I mean, are some of our funds going to help mitigate some of those issues as well?
They could be used, but I believe school districts get their own pot of money. It's called McKinney-Vento Act funds, and they get some funding to address those issues within school districts.
And Councilmember Mitchell, just on that study,
Yeah.
we dove into some of the numbers, and we could not verify some of that. So I don't know how accurate the study was that there were that many students. Because we specifically actually reached out to the schools to identify them, to connect them with Home Start, to see if there were some families that we could help.
Right.
And we struggled to identify those families.
Well, that's good to know, because, I mean, I was shocked at this meeting to hear of 340 students. That's a lot of students. I mean, yes, in the large population overall, it's a small percentage, but still, that's 340 kids. So if we can't verify that, then maybe I need to go back and ask those questions as well. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker card, sir.
All right. Any further discussion, or somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we adopt the next resolution, amending fiscal year 2019 to 2020 and fiscal year 2020 to 2021 one-year action plans to allocate $185,000 in available CDBG funds to Home Start to carry out COVID-19 related public service program of homeless outreach and services.
As part of that motion, are you also moving to close the public hearing, Ms. Mitchell?
I'm sorry?
Are you also moving to close the public hearing?
Yes, I'd like to close the public hearing as well. Throw that in.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. Item 11 is to reject bids for the design build of the digital message board. And I'll ask our Assistant City Manager, Mr. DiMaggio, to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Typically, this type of item, you find it on consent, but I know that this is an issue that is near and dear to the council, and it's a priority issue, so we thought it would be better to explain exactly what's going on here. As you'll recall, back in 2021, this council adopted a series of zoning ordinance amendments making the development of digital billboards on city-owned property or right-of-way a possibility. After that, in August of 2022, staff prepared an RFP seeking qualified vendors to develop the digital message board sign. The site in question that the council and the staff had envisioned was the site at the North Johnson Avenue exit. There's a piece of city-owned property there adjacent to the Mazda dealership that was to be the location of the sign, and that's the direction that we were moving, and the reason why we issued the RFP was for the development of that site. There were 3 staff members that were on the panel, myself, Community Development Director Tony Shute, and Management Analyst Ryan Villegas, who reviewed all of the proposals and chose Outdoor Associates as the best qualified. And we began a series of initial conversations with Outdoor Associates concerning that site. As we dialogued with Outdoor Associates, we came to find out that this site at the Mazda dealership on Johnson Avenue exit was going to be very challenging. The entire corridor, the entire I-8 corridor through El Cajon is classified by Caltrans as a landscape corridor. And as you know from your experience knowing that site, there's a stand of eucalyptus trees there that would have to be removed. It was the opinion of Outdoor Associates, staff concurred, that the likelihood of Caltrans approving an amendment removing that designation from that location was slim, and that the opportunity to remove those trees would in all likelihood not be granted. So we started to look at other secondary sites. And if we found a secondary site, we're still going to have to amend the classification because the landscape corridor classification exists throughout the entire city. We have found a second site. We are looking at it and examining it and determining whether it would be appropriate from an access standpoint, whether it's suitable for the development of a sign, but we're moving towards a secondary site to become the primary site. We're just about ready to do that. Coinciding with that, Outdoor Associates had some internal issues that they then informed us that they would be withdrawing from the process. Not because they couldn't do the job. This was entirely a decision internal, not having anything to do with the RFP. So we find ourselves in a position where the vendor has withdrawn, the site is untenable, and we're looking at a secondary site. This makes it a requirement that we revise the RFP, go out again, and solicit proposals, analyze those proposals, make a selection, begin those discussions, and eventually bring an agreement back to the council. So this was going to take probably into the spring. But again, recognizing the importance of this issue that the council places on it, we will move with all due diligence and get it back to you as quickly as we can. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm to understand that there's nobody involved is objecting to this in any way?
No.
Okay. Questions? Sounds pretty straightforward. Angela, we speak cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
Okay. I don't think we need to close the public hearing, so it just comes back for discussion.
Quick question for staff. So given the previous vendor identified that issue with Caltrans, as part of the RFP process, are the potential applicants going to identify potential sites, and are we going to rely on their expertise to kind of identify sites, given that Caltrans requirements weren't known to us? Does that make sense? So
no, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We're going to identify the site.
Okay.
They're going to analyze the site in terms of their breadth of experience as to whether or not they can get that landscape designation removed from that second site, and then we'll make a determination from there. The main problem here is that even though eucalyptus trees are non-native, they apparently are very good consumers of CO2. So they're part of the part of the bigger picture as far as Caltrans is concerned in reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay.
The number 2 contractor, if that's who we go for next, are we trying to fit a square peg through a different shaped? Are we trying to force this thing when really it's just not a good fit with a site and a contractor?
I think the contractor was just fine. The issues were completely business-related issues for the contractor, had nothing to do with the project. The site, I think, was problematic, and we discovered that through the process. If we can confirm that this secondary site is the secondary site that we're examining has no trees, has no vegetation whatsoever. We just need to confirm that we can get to it and that we can service it and that it's developable as far as the actual development of a sign at that location. The visibility is outstanding. It's actually the better site, but we just need to confirm that it's going to be developable.
You think the other contractors are good enough to get this project done, or
Yes.
are they so far away from the first Outdoor Associates that?
No, in the scoring, the second place company I would expect to resubmit, and the reason for the resubmittal is the different site. Yeah.
All right, council, it's back to you. Looking for motion?
Yeah, I'll move to adopt the resolution rejecting the bid 009-23 and authorize staff to make such changes to the RFP to allow for the option of a secondary site for the project.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, the last administrative report, item 12, is for the City Council Action Plan. And I'll ask our city manager to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If we could pull up my presentation. Back on January 31st, the City Council, along with members of the public, held a workshop where we discussed the 2023 City Council Action Plan, specifically focusing on priorities and goals that the City Council wanted to focus on in this upcoming year. Just as a quick reminder, this is my old PowerPoint presentation. That's cool. These are the main priorities. There was city beautification, citizen engagement, economic development, homelessness, public safety, and then miscellaneous. And as you recall, you added the citizen engagement component, and you compressed or combined downtown development opportunities and economic development into one priority. Out of those different priorities, there are 20 different objectives or outcomes that the council would hope to achieve. And associated with those, there's about 60 significant tasks or milestones to help us stay on target. My intent today is not to go through all 60 of the tasks and milestones, but just to go through each priority and see if there's any questions about the outcomes or priorities. I'll make a comment on a couple of them and to see if any questions about the tasks. But before I get to that, I did want to identify one of the tasks that was discussed, or one of the objectives that you talked about, was this idea of exploring a way that we could create a fund or almost an insurance policy that would protect police officers civilly while performing duties. The reality is, if immunity were to go away, it would not have an impact on officers because we already are required to protect them through our insurance. It would actually be an impact on us. So that's where the impact would be. So because they already have, through whether it's qualified immunity or not qualified immunity, we still are on the hook to protect them while they're in the line of their duty. And so exploring another insurance policy probably would not help or protect them. So I removed that aspect from.
Thanks for looking
from that. So we looked at that. We got it. Yeah. So the other thing that we talked about kind of initially, but it never really went in there, so staff was a little unclear of whether you wanted us to explore it, is the idea of flavored tobacco and whether you wanted us to explore a flavored tobacco policy or add that to our ordinance in addition to the state's policy. We can talk about that if you have questions about it. We also briefly talked about a goal that was established last fiscal year about having a lobbyist, and we never got around to that, but wasn't quite sure if the council wanted to continue that as a goal or not. And then a couple of us had talked about pension analysis, maybe what are some next steps. Again, that was initially discussed but never really went anywhere. But I wanted to make sure that those were intentional, leaving them off the table, or if there was an interest in continuing to add or discuss those and add them to this year's action plan. So I just wanted to leave that out there, and as we go through each of the plan or each of the priorities, if those want to be brought up by council members, we can certainly entertain those and have a council discussion about those. So any questions up to this point? Okay. So looking at city beautification, it's a long one. We added 15 neighborhood and infrastructure projects. In reality, these should really be identified what I'd call in a capital improvement program or plan. But I think there's such big projects, and it's important that the council and the public recognize that this is taking up a lot of time. And so it helps me to communicate to the public of what we're working on. It also helps manage staff to make sure that we are keeping this on the forefront of their minds, because I want to keep that on the forefront of the city council's mind. So it's a useful tool for management, but it's also a useful tool to communicate some of the amazing things that are currently being worked on throughout our community. This beautification objective includes the mural project, talks about third-party contractor review, and then also the exploration of technological solutions to really focus on city beautification or neighborhood improvements. Any questions about the city beautification objectives? Okay. Moving on to citizen engagement, we continue to have a objective or outcome that will increase communication and engagement efforts, and hopefully you've recognized some of the increased engagement we've already had, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're excited for a lot more bigger things to come. We also included a goal with a natural metric. I know that was one of the comments that was made during the public comment. We'd like to increase the number of users by about 30%, or 2,300 users. We currently have about 7,700 users right now, so that would increase to about 10,000 users in the community. If you look at the number of residents that are 18 and older, that would be about a 10% market penetration. So not horrible. We can still do better, but it's a step in the right direction. Any thoughts or any feedback on citizen engagement objectives? Okay, moving on to economic development objectives. One of the things that we really, between the assistant city manager and I, we've in the last 2 weeks had a lot of discussions about some catalyst development projects in the downtown, including on city property. We'll probably be wanting to either go in closed session because there's some real estate negotiations, or we may just do some one-on-one briefings to keep the council updated on where we're going with some ideas. But we're hoping to get something before the city council relatively sooner than later as a formal package to go out to the community. Parkway Plaza continues to be a priority for the city, and I think there's some opportunities there. The capstone, the students at San Diego State that are working on a capstone project currently have a survey out. So if you haven't taken the survey, it's all over our social media. It's in other formats too. We encourage you to take that survey and encourage your neighbors to take that survey to get some input and some feedback about how Parkway Plaza could be re-envisioned. We intend to include an economic development fund as part of the next year's budget, so we can start funding some of these programs and ideas that we are developing. And then finally, we are currently in the midst of the downtown P-bid analysis to kind of look at what's going right, what could we do better. If we were to reapprove or go out to reapproval of the P-bid, how would that look differently, if it would at all? Any questions about economic development?
No, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to homelessness objectives. One of the things that the council talked about is setting up a series of town hall meetings that would be more interactive than just information flowing one way or the other. And so those have already been established. The council has those sent out to you. They will go through April 4th through May 4th. So we're already, if you look at the council action plan, we're already 4 days behind schedule because our goal was to finish by May 1st. But I think this would be an opportunity not only to provide some education to our community about what's going on, but for us to get some education on some brilliant ideas that we haven't come up with yet, or brainstorm on some solutions. We hope to use some of the dialogue that occurs during those meetings do some filming of that and use those for some promotional materials to just provide better education to the community. A lot of folks, as we know, and this isn't an El Cajon thing, this is an everywhere thing, the solutions towards homelessness are complex. Homelessness is complex. And it's important, I think, for our residents to recognize the complexity of that. And so we will use some of the material from that to help in the education effort and hopefully for us to get educated as well. We continue to look for opportunities to help our neighboring jurisdictions with some shelter opportunities. The $185,000 that you reallocated earlier today was actually set aside for a shelter. The problem is that deadline was coming due, and so it was better to allocate it now. We have some additional funding that's coming to the city through some permanent housing funding specifically for homelessness and sheltering, and so we can utilize those funds as they come available to help our neighbors. And then also we're looking at, I think, in every contract, in every conditional use permit that has any connection with homelessness, there has to be a plan or a policy to discharge. In fact, I recently heard of a healthcare district relying on El Cajon services for those being discharged without homes. They're coming to El Cajon. The question is, do they ever leave El Cajon? And so it's only fair to the residents of El Cajon to ensure that every policy, every agreement, every conditional use permit has a plan in there that addresses this issue. And so that'll be something that we'll be focusing on throughout the year and making sure that every policy is, or every agreement or CUP, that policy is woven through. Any questions about homelessness? Okay.
No, thank you.
Moving on to public safety. Starting the fixed license plate reader program. In fact, the chief just sent me an article out of Dallas, Texas, how successful their program has been. And so we're looking at around the country what's working best and what could be better. And so we're looking forward to implementing that program starting soon. We're hoping to have a vendor in place by April, by the end of April, and hoping to have cameras installed by midsummer. So that's moving along. One of the things that we had talked about is looking at how to ensure there's better fire coverage. And I'll be honest, I was rearing to go with staffing and looking at some budget things, and our chief wisely said we should probably do a study first and really understand what the need is, and then we can allocate the resources most effectively. And so we're hoping to have that, what's called a standard of cover and community risk assessment, done by midsummer. And I think from there, we'll be better informed to figure out what is the best plan forward. In the meantime, we're looking at some potential grant funding that could help us with some staffing needs. So we'll be looking at that throughout the year. We're also have a goal, again, a very specific number, to reduce convalescent home or skilled nursing facility or congregate care calls by 10% by the end of the year. And so we're looking at increased outreach efforts. We have noticed when we have a concerted effort to contact and have a good dialogue with one of these facilities, over a period of time, calls do go down. The question is, do they go down permanently or do they spike up again? But it is labor intensive to spend a lot of time in those facilities educating, but it is starting to have a bit of an impact. We also think there's some opportunities to apply some municipal code amendment strategies, and so we'll be looking at what we can legally do to ensure that convalescent homes aren't relying on the city as part of their business plan, and so not taking advantage of the other taxpayers in the community. And we're also wanting to see what the Nurse Navigator program, as it is rolled out and applied, what that does in those overall calls to those types of care facilities. And then I think once we have the congregate care facility, or the coverage strategy established, or that analysis done, then we can present a plan that we think will have a bigger impact that the city council can consider. And then we're lastly continuing to work on programs that attract police officers. We're having tremendous success. It's been great. We had a brand new officer come on. We just featured her on our social media recently. She came from Fresno Sheriff's Department. So we continue to have these success stories and moving forward with there. So any questions about public safety? Okay. Lastly is miscellaneous. Veterans Memorial, moving forward with that. The goal is by the end of the year, have a finalized contract with a memorial artist and designer. So we'll have identified location and somebody in place that can help us design. I think once the design is established, we can start focusing on how to fundraise. We think there's some value in having that conversation sooner than later, but there is a horse before the cart situation, so we want to make sure, or a cart before the horse situation. So we want to make sure that we have things lined up before we start going out and asking the public for money. We hope to have a deferred maintenance analysis to you by the end of April, and then we'll be working with MTS and hopefully with the entire city council and pushing to look for some strategies to ensure that there's some restrooms on the Orange Line, and specifically in El Cajon. So with that is the council action plan as in draft form. Staff is looking for any feedback or discussion or considerations that we need to add, and I want to remind council of those other outstanding issues that I introduced at the beginning to see if there's any dialogue around those topics. So with that, I turn the time back over to the council.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Graham. Questions? Comments? Gary?
Graham, could you forward to City Council the Dallas study, please?
It's a newspaper article, but I will send that to the council today.
All right, thank you.
Michelle?
I just have a couple of comments. I think we're doing a really good job, and Chris, you're doing an awesome, awesome job out there. I noticed a lot of the public is responding to your social media posts, and a lot of it's in good, positive direction. I'm impressed with the social media post on the recruitment for police. That's been awesome. I mean, I watch these videos and it's like, that's my city. This is so cool. It really is good. I think that if we can start taking bites out of this, out of some of these tasks, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of cooperation, and it takes time. I just hope that we maintain patience, which will, in fact, get the public to be patient as well. Because I know that some of these issues, there are people in the community who are chomping at the bit. They want to see them done. They want to see them done now. Homelessness is number one concern, and everybody wants to see that taken care of now. But it takes time and effort and a lot of patience, and I just can't emphasize that enough, that people just have to be patient. We can't force anyone to take advantage of the services that are provided, and we just keep our fingers crossed that eventually they will do so. But anyway, that's another whole conversation. But good job, Mr. City Manager.
Steve?
I'm a little concerned about the healthcare district and those operations, especially since our 911 nurse triage seems to actually be helping the healthcare district send less people there. And so we certainly want to make sure we've got good partners throughout the system. I'm really encouraged by the app usage. If you say you want to get to 10,000, I don't look at it as 10,000 as 1 in 10 of 100,000. I look at it as 10,000 among 33,000 households. So we could say 1 in 3 households is using the app in El Cajon, and that would be substantial. I think that's a great thing. The communication to the residents via some of these social media things tells the value that people are getting for their tax dollars. And that's what's really, this is a different world where people are demanding transparency of the money they give government. And so I think we're on really a better track than I've seen a lot of agencies around us do that. I'm concerned about some of our neighboring jurisdictions and their lack of, or actually even outright resistance to putting some homeless sites, support sites in their communities, actually fighting them. But you know what? We'll be the city of compassion then, if that's what it takes. I was out at the Meridian tiny village today. They're full, the 6 homes. 5 of the people are working. Because they're housed there, you can find them there. That's one of the problems with helping people who are homeless is because you move around, it's hard to find them to provide support sometimes. Well, they were here last week. Now they're a different place. They're in the same place. They're getting the services. 5 of the 6 are working, small children, and they're just getting help right and left in terms of car registration and EBT benefits and things. And I wish other cities would jump on this. It really is frustrating.
Mr. Goebel, I know one of the goals that the city council had with the cabins was actually to be a model for the county, and maybe we're brainstorming a little bit right now, but maybe I'm thinking Mr. Ortiz as part of the League of California Cities San Diego region, rather than having a meeting at a stuffy motel or hotel in the middle of San Diego, they have a meeting in El Cajon at that location, and we could showcase to all the cities, all 17 other cities in the county, what works and what's possible and how it's really duplicatable. So
I think that's a great idea.
We'll work on that.
At less than $10,000 a unit, nobody has been able to beat that kind of cost efficiency. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. I love the report. I love the target dates, and I love the 10% increase, 30% increase. I love the specific goals. I would like to put on, if the council would agree and the mayor, on miscellaneous, reaching out for an RFP for a lobbyist for local representation, someone that can liaison with other entities, the community at large, organizations, nonprofit, whether it's the building association, building industry association, SANDAG, MTS. I know we brought on outside help during the Working Families Ordinance. That was very beneficial. I felt we could have used some help externally with regard to the redistricting. So I think there's going to be there are opportunities for local representation externally instead of in Sacramento, where it's an exercise in futility trying to get people to listen to us. I actually think there might be some wins here on a local level. So I would like to see that back on our priorities. And then as part of the public safety, I don't remember if the Nurse Navigator program, if we were going to get an update on that as it goes, but maybe add that if it's not already there.
We should probably add that as a metric because it'd be good for us to have some targets to look for. I don't know when that should be, but I'll work with the chief and we can add something that we should include that.
See how well that program is growing. I think we're all very excited about it, along with the license plate reader program. I'm very excited about that as well. I think that's a battlefield enhancement, so to speak, for our officers on the street. And then I want to push back a little bit. Is there any way we can, with regard to reducing mutual aid, I think it's fantastic that we're going to do a study to assess the standard of cover and community risk assessment. The goal is July. I'm going to push back and ask, can we move that up a little bit, the study? I don't know, and Graham and Chief, you guys talk about it, deal with it, but I'm going to push back and say, can we get that study moved up, the timeline moved up so we can implement strategies sooner than December of 23? I want to push back on that goal a little bit.
Well, I think the study, it kind of is what it is. I mean, that's probably realistic. Now, whether it takes 6 months to implement some things out of the study, we gave ourselves some runway right there.
Sure.
But I have had discussions with the fire union when we're doing labor negotiations right now, so we're having a lot of discussions. And I think they recognize the value of not shooting before we aim. It's better to get the right fit.
Okay.
Because if we need an engine company, we need an engine company. If we need 2 squads, we need 2 squads. If we need 1 squad, if we need to do a better distribution of staffing, we need to do that. So I think having the study will give them the resources that they desperately need, rather than us predicting what we think the problem is. So I think they're going to be patient with that, but we will work as hard as we can to get that moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Steve?
I think what Mr. Ortiz is saying, it's going to take us 2 years from the date we say go to get a new fire truck. And if we wait till July and we say we need a new squad, F-250, we don't want to have to wait another year or year and a half to get an F-250 fully equipped. Now we're 2 years out from today. I think that's where we're going with this I agree. Let's not order one now, but boy, if the data says in July, let's get a new F-250 for a squad, let's not wait a year to get it.
Well, even remember, let's say July 1, it's obvious there's a need for a squad. You put it in the budget. It will take us at least 3 months just to hire the people, right? So there's always going to be, like you said, there's going to be some leeway or some time to get that going. So,
but in the same way with the police department, we overhired because the data was able to predict who might be retiring. And there was a little bit of an overlap there, and I think the council's saying, hey, we might fund an overhiring if the retirements will use those extra hires up, if not a squad.
Is anyone is everyone okay with adding lobbyists to the miscellaneous, or is there any objections?
Well, by adding it, excuse me. By adding it, does that mean you'll come back to us with a plan as to what it would cost?
Well, I think what we would do is we would add the RFP into as a goal under miscellaneous. We would go out and do an RFP. We'd probably seek some input from the council on what that should be included in the RFP. We'd be very public about that. Go out and see what comes in, and the council can make a decision. Yeah, that makes sense financially, or wow, that doesn't make sense at all.
If that's what it is, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Phil. I think a lobbyist would be very helpful, especially for the local stuff. We don't have much of a say because of the makeup in the state legislature, but locally it could have a big impact on us if we have a good lobbyist that really knows the lay of the land.
Okay, we're set on that. So, Phil, you want to make the motion then?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to add a local lobbyist to the miscellaneous section of our yearly goal.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
You know, I never asked if we had speaker cards on this
No
item.
speakers, sir.
Okay, thanks. All right, there are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 13 is my report as described. Activity reports for Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
Mine are as reported with the report about the advanced water purification project out in Santee. We countersigned all the documents with the city of San Diego, so we are going to withdraw the legal action for eminent domain, and the result will be to get $2 million back out of escrow.
Great. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported.
Councilmember Ortiz.
As reported, with a quick comment, we had at the League of California Cities meeting, we had a representative from the governor's office, and he specifically addressed the care court, which the mayor and the rest of the council supported. And we were I was surprised that I think every jurisdiction in San Diego supported care court. All councils and cities supported it unanimously, and so we voiced our support to the representative from the governor's office, and it seems like it's a top priority for him. And he made it a point to say this was just step one in a process. So encouraging words. Hopefully that will make an impact on the street.
Yeah, having spent my professional life working in that area, I think it's the right the right way to go. It's the right plan. We've been talking about that for years. So, okay then. Item 18 is a joint report from Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel and Councilmember Ortiz. Gentlemen?
I'll defer to Mr. Steve Goebel.
Okay, I appreciate Councilmember Ortiz's support on this. Staff, do we have any kind of slides or presentations?
Yeah, I
on
do have
this?
I have an image for you.
So, as we don't have jurisdiction over Interstate 8 as it goes through El Cajon, but we certainly have a lot of people that travel that area through El Cajon. And if I remember the table, do we have the table on the numbers? Okay,
But it's in the staff report, I believe.
Okay, hang on one second. Bear with me. Thank you. So we all know that the slow lane in Interstate 8, basically from 2nd Street to 67, going westbound, sometimes gets bogged up as people trying to get off the freeway and go at 67 into Santee. And I have seen more than a few collisions go through there, and personally I experienced one in January, which was pretty amazing. And so I said, hey, I wonder how safe this stretch of the road really is. And so I asked the city manager to look into the number of incidents. Really, the key is how many people left the roadway and went down the bank and into the flood channel, because there's been some serious incidents. And the stats that I got from the chief, thank you, Chief, is that from all of 2021 and all of 2022 combined, the 2 years, there were 143 total incidents that Heartland responded to, and Mutual Aid as well, that fire responded to. 101 of those were westbound, and let's see, westbound, 17 of those left the roadway, down the bank, some into the flood channel. 17 in 2 years. That's a serious, serious stretch of roadway. And so rather than say, hey, I'll write a letter to Caltrans and say, can we get some guardrail? I thought if all 5 of us band together and say, hey, this is an issue citywide, that 143 incidents and 17 of those left the roadway between 2nd and 67 down the bank into the flood channel. There's been a couple of fatalities among those. And if we band together and write a letter to Caltrans, I think it'll carry much more weight than just one of us. And that's my request, is that we join in that letter together for those reasons. All right.
Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
I don't know, it seems like a legitimate request and good thinking. I hadn't really thought about that. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm on board. So,
I'm on board as well. I think that particular section of driving 8 west and then, either going to Magnolia or to 67 is extremely dangerous. My grandson had a bad accident, car caught on fire, the whole shot. It's terrible, and I see all the time people complaining about that particular piece of roadway. If we can put guardrails or whatever it takes to help at least mitigate some of those issues, I think it needs to be re-engineered personally. I think it's a great idea, though, guys. I'm all aboard.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, move to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. There are no general information items. There are no first or second readings of ordinances and no closed sessions on today's agenda. So this brings us to adjournment, the adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 20th day of February 2023, is adjourned until Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you all very much.